What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia stock, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Wednesday, May 15th. All right, guys, Nvidia stock here today up $9.57 per share. That's plus 1.06% in regular trading hours. Currently down a little bit in the after hours. Take that with a grain of salt. Volume in the after hours is extraordinarily low, and it's easy to bully and pump, I guess, as well, stocks in the after hours. So unless volume in the after hours is meeting or exceeding the afternoon volume intraday, take it absolutely with a grain of salt. I saw someone ask about pre-market as well. That also goes for pre-market. You'll notice that the more definitive movement in pre-market typically will happen, the kind of movement that usually sets the day a bit better, that will oftentimes happen on higher volume. But the difference with pre-market, though, also is that you can get oftentimes news that changes things quickly, even just like off the open. So that's also another factor to consider. But listen, let's take a look at Nvidia in particular. We're going to take a look under the hood at the volume profile to pull out any bias that we can possibly find. We'll look at the psychological levels. Listen, there's a lot of money watching those levels, so we need to be watching as well. For you options traders, implied volatility we'll cover really quick, and then we'll look at the expected move for tomorrow as well as the directional bias. So let's get started here with a quick little bias analysis of the volume profile here on the 5-minute chart. And hey, by the way, if you are new here, Nvidia is a daily upload. I cover this stock every single day, and my goal here is 10,000 subs. Trying to hit it, soon here. We're getting close. But we can't do it without your help. So I appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and I will keep the Nvidia videos coming daily. So listen, let's look under the hood here and try to pull out whatever bias we can. We look here, pretty normal open. We got a little bit of a pop in volume on this third bar, which is a little bit out of context, but not enough to assign any bias. So volume fades here. What we then see, guys, is this relatively sustained pop on this upside move. Now, the majority of that volume came on this big green bar. Okay, and then volume kind of faded off. It was kind of sloppy. It wasn't so clean. We got increasing volume on the upside move and then kind of more fading volume once the stock began to pull back. 10% bullish bias. Nothing even close to the most ridiculous that we've seen here on Nvidia. So let's move on. Here, too much of a risk of fooled by randomness with just one bar. Once we get later into the day, guys, we do get a little bit of a premature pop in volume on that upside green move here. Again, that there is a little bit of bullish bias. I don't know, maybe 15-20%. Again, probably more like 10 or 15%. Nothing substantial, but there's something certainly there. And then volume's pretty consistent throughout the close. We get a little bit of a pop in volume into the close, but again, this bar here, guys, right? That's a rebalancing bar. So unfortunately, you bears, that's really normal to see that on most days, really, on the first bar following the bell. And sometimes it's green, sometimes it's red, but the actual movement on the underlying candle is typically very small. So I tend to ignore that last bar, whether it is green or red. All right. Now, let's move on to the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels here on Nvidia, starting with the very simple 30-minute chart. If you guys remember yesterday, we were talking how we were holding on to both the 50 and the 200 that were kind of right on top of each other, but it was close. We were barely holding on, riding right on top of both. Well, today got a little bit sloppy. We opened below, ripped upside through, got a lower volume retest, and then we didn't get a tremendously high volume bounce, but we got a bounce. Okay, we put some distance between the stock price and those levels here on the 30-minute. Not a bad thing to see if you're a bull here today. Tomorrow, here's what I'm looking at. Bulls, couple of things. First of all, I want to see that 50 period get higher and higher and higher, reclaiming as many $5 increments as possible. So really, I'm looking toward like 9, 10, ideally, just to get some feet up underneath that move, get the potential psychological area of support as close to the higher stock price as possible would be ideal. And by the way, bulls, any retest of that 50 period, I want to see that hold on high volume, as much volume as possible, always on bounces off of levels if you're a bull. Bears. All right, we currently find ourselves approximately minus 0.78% to that 50 period and about 1.13% to that 200 period. Bears, a high volume bust down through both of those levels would be great. low volume retest of the 200 period, which would likely be the lower level at that point, and then a high volume rejection to reclaim both of these as a resistance in one smooth motion would be ideal if you're a bear. Let's move on here to the 4-hour chart and take a peek. You can see here that we came down and nearly tested the 50 period and then continued a little bit higher here today. That 50 period is starting to curl to the upside. Not a bad thing to see. Listen, the 50 period on the 4-hour, it's going to be a slower moving average. But listen, bulls, I'm always looking similar on the 30-minute for that to get up underneath any move that drives the stock higher, right? I want to see not only the stock price stair step, but I also want to see the psychological levels, like in this case, the 50, stair step along with it and stay close, right? You always want as many psychological barriers back to the downside to stay as close to the stock price as possible on an up move. Everything that I just said, just mirror it if you're a bear, okay? So just to be clear here, bulls, if we retest the 50 period, you're going to want to see that hold. And ideally, you just want to see that 50 period continue in that ascending trend through tomorrow. Okay, I'm really looking, claiming 890 would be great, but if we can get that 50 period to claim $900 a share soon, in one day might be a little bit of a stretch for this chart, but soon, that would be great. And you bears, a downside move to try to kind of get below that, at least the 50 period, which is 2.6% away. It's not a small move, but that would be great. We've certainly seen crazier things out of Nvidia. If you're a bear, getting beneath that 50 period would set you bears up for a potential near-term downside move to test the 200 period, because ultimately, if you're a bear, you want to get back beneath both of these as quickly as possible. That would imply a downside break of $900, which is a big level to watch. So let's move on here to the daily. The most important chart of all paints the most clear picture. Now, a few things going on here, guys. That 50-day moving average is right at 879.59. So, the backstop for bulls is that 50-day. Whatever we do, don't give up that 50-day, right? Bears, your ultimate goal is to give up the 50-day. If you could do that in a single day, that would be wonderful. But the real story here, today, we held $900 a share. Good job, bulls. Okay, that's a good thing to see. Bears. The ultimate goal, aside from, doing a great thing like reclaiming the 50-day moving average as resistance, if you can get back down into the $800 range, like getting below $900 a share, that's a psychological level. That is kind of the level that's holding back the bulls from pushing up toward $950, $975, $1,000 a share at all-time highs. Okay, because there's really not a lot in the way if the bulls can hold $900. So bulls, the ultimate goal is to hold 9, start moving up toward 950, and then really we're kind of looking at all-time highs, $1,000 a share is that next area. So bears, the best way to kind of try to prevent that, if not just delay it, is to get back down below $900 a share, ideally below the 50-day moving average, so you have a couple areas of resistance ahead of the stock to try to delay things and discourage as many bulls as you can. All right, now for you options traders, this is very important. Implied volatility, also I think worth considering even if you're just trading shares. Currently sitting in, I would say, the mid to high range compared to the last 3 months. Compared to the last 1 month or so, I would say it's similar, the higher, maybe mid to high range. Okay, but it is down in the last couple of days, IV is. Okay, so make sure you're comparing IV to your intended trade time frame. Make sure you're kind of taking, okay, what's my intended trade time frame? When did I buy these contracts, or when am I looking to buy these contracts? Or maybe you're taking the short side, not necessarily short the stock, but short the contracts, selling to open them, I mean. And then consider your time frame and say, okay, well, where's IV in relation to my specific intended trade time frame? The context of that is highly important because IV can be very high compared to a month ago, but it can be very low compared to 2 years ago, right? But that's currently where we sit, so important to understand that if you're looking to, sell a position or get into a new position. I think Vega, the Greek Vega, is heavily overlooked, and it definitely shouldn't be. It's a very important aspect of trading options that can really kind of make or break any kind of advantage. Now, expected move. Of course, we do not have the luxury of daily expirations on Nvidia, so we'll do a little bit of educated guesswork to the absolute best of our ability here. The next expiration is Friday. The expected move by Friday's close compared to today's close is plus or minus $30.01 per share. We divide that by 3, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to get tomorrow. and then we add back 50% because that initial divide by 3 assumes 3 red days or 3 green days in a row. We don't want to make that assumption. So in this market, I'm adding back 50%. That seems to be the most consistent for us, at least right now. That gives us a plus or minus expected move by tomorrow's close compared to today's close of about $15 a share. Okay. That's the market's expected volatility by design. No directional bias there, right? Because that's the volatility expectation, which is a huge piece of that puzzle. But you might be thinking, okay, it's helpful to know. What, at least I hope you're thinking that, because it's very helpful to be aware of that. Now you're thinking, well, what about directional bias? Well, we just did a whole analysis, but the one more thing we can do that I've been tracking daily for years on all these stocks, the volume. 812,000 total contracts traded today, about 500,000 calls, about 311,000 puts. Okay, so it's a call side bias there on the overall ratio. But if we break this down, go one step further, break it down by the short-term speculators by looking at that 0 to 20 delta range in particular. 169,000 calls and 138,000 puts. Bit of a call side bias there as well. It's not overwhelming, but it's there. Listen, guys, I know a lot of this can be overwhelming, though. A lot of the information, I mean, if your goal here is to try to kind of expedite this process, I think it's helpful to be in a community that has a similar goal, a similar mindset. That this is what I originally built our private community for over 3 years ago. There are 4 membership tiers that all offer different things. Of course, in there, I'm sending out my daily scalp setup alerts, my in-play stock alerts every day. Those are the stocks that make up the majority of my personal intraday trading volume. I'm sending out, well, first of all, I'm human verifying and then sending out me personally. Unusual options activity alerts every day. That's how I keep track of what the whales are doing. I've also been doing that for years and working with my Platinum one-on-one group. So take a look at that at the link in the pinned comment. I will see you inside. I appreciate you leaving a like on the video for my daily Nvidia coverage. I hope you guys are getting value out of this, and I will see you in the next one.